But yeah, I can kick off and welcome everybody. As you all know, I know most of you on the call. I'm Meg Jameson. I'm the executive director of SSDN, and we are thrilled to be in round two, year two of this partnership with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy to produce another year of Electrify the South programming. So we got together with the SACE team to collaborate on how we can elevate opportunities for both technical assistance on transportation electrification from our great experts over at SACE and combining our powerhouse support on federal funding. So we have Michael Dexter and Casey Calloway on the line from our team. And we're thrilled to continue this partnership, really to help you all maximize opportunities for funding from this once in a generation opportunity with the federal funding investments we have today. So we are going to focus a lot on a lot of different things today, but obviously 'tis the season of elective pay, so we're going to tee that up. But before we do so, I do want to remind folks that we are going to have another convening. So give a little show of hands on your screen, your fake hand or your real hand, if you attended. Oh yeah, next slide, Reed, sorry. Let me know if you attended the convening that we hosted in Savannah back in September of last year. That was a really fun and amazing event. Yes, I see several fake hands, some real hands, amazing. We got together in person, which allowed for a lot of wonderful opportunities for peer learning, and we had some federal partners in the room. We are, next slide, I think, Reed, sorry, triggering. Oh, great, what a great picture of me. We are going to have a round two in Orlando, and that is going to be February 6th and 7th. We're excited to collaborate this year with the Florida Sustainability Directors Network, who's going to be having an event the day before. And Dory just booked the hotel officially, so it's a Marriott. Thank you, Dory. So we'll send more information about the logistics and the details, but did want you all to save the date and know that we do intend to bring folks together again in person next year. So Reed, I think you can go to the next slide, and I think this is my cue to pass it over to you, Dory.
Thank you, Meg. So yeah, super excited to be with y'all this morning. Thanks for making some time. I just wanted to share so here's the agenda for today. So we're going to review our new website, and I'm going to let you know about Zeddy. Then we'll hear from Jeremiah and Rachel about some elective pay best practices. And then we're going to break out into some rooms for some deeper conversations, and then bring it all back together, and then do a quick lightning round of utility issues, and then wrap it up. So on the next slide, this is the new and improved website. So you can get there by going to electrifythesouth.org and then clicking on programs, and then it'll drop down to the Electrify the South Collaborative. And then you can see in the main banner, we have two subpages. The one is the events page. So if you are trying to remember some resources that happened in the February call, and you're like, I know that it was at that meeting, you would click there and you would be able to find a recording of the meeting and all of the slides from the meeting and all of the resources. Or if maybe you're new to the collaborative and you don't remember the February meeting, but you are curious about procurement, then you would go to the resources page, and we have all of the resources grouped together by topic. So hopefully that will be easier to use and easier to access some of the resources for y'all. I also wanted to mention we do have a Electrify the South Collaborative directory, and I will share that again in the notes today that go out after the meeting. And we really encourage you guys to lean on each other and reach out to one another, ask each other questions, and have those on the offline conversations in between the meetings. And then also just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that when we have new municipalities join our collaborative meetings, love to have you, love to celebrate. So the name of your municipality will go on the website unless you don't want to be on the website. Same for the directory. If you don't want to have your name listed on the directory, no problem. Just shoot me an email and let me know. So those are the high-level new website updates and resources that I wanted to share. And then I'm going to hand it over to John Bonnets, who had reached out about wanting to share about the Charging Smart program. So John, are you able to come off mute and take it for a minute? Maybe not. So we can circle back to that at the end of the meeting if John's on then. All right, so moving along to the next slide, we have gotten quite a few queries about medium and heavy duty vehicle offerings. So we wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of this resource from CalSTART. It's their Zero Emission Technology Inventory, or ZETI, and it's really great. So if you want to, see who is making electric trolleys, then you can click on the website and then you can search by the type of vehicle. You can also search by the manufacturer or range or class. So lots of different ways that you can use this resource. It also lets you compare 3 models at a time. So if you want to, if you know exactly what you're looking for and you want to be able to compare 3 manufacturers' models, then you can do that with the ZETI tool. So we wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of that, and I'll put the link to that in the chat today. But know that, again, all of these notes will be captured and sent out after the meeting today. All right, so I think moving on to our next section, I'm really, really thankful for Rachel and Jeremiah to be able to join with us today and share their expertise. So we asked them to speak on any of their internal systems that they have in place to kind of streamline the EV credit application process. And they graciously agreed to share their learnings and their findings. So I'm going to hand it over to Rachel to share with us what you've got. Really appreciate it. Rachel Delaval is the Senior Sustainability and Energy Analyst from the City of Durham, North Carolina. Jeremiah Leroy is the Director of the Office of Sustainability in Buncombe County, North Carolina. So I'm going to let you guys take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Dory. I'm also going to give a shout out for my teammate, Joyce Cooper, is on the line as well from our finance department. So she might be able to help answer any questions that come up now or later in the breakout sessions. So yeah, I'll just kind of give a quick overview of what we've done with direct pay thus far and kind of where we're at, how we've tried to streamline it and some of the challenges. So we started working on we did our calendar year 2023. The IRS calls them assets, but essentially the things that we installed in 2023 back at the beginning of this year, I'll say around January-ish. This was something I was initially tasked with. So I started doing a lot of research, working to collect all the information of Apple projects from 2023, and it quickly grew into a team effort. Obviously, our finance department was involved. Like I mentioned, we also had some heavy lifting from our fleet team because we had a lot of vehicles involved, as well as water management, our project management team, and facilities and maintenance. So as anybody who's gone through this will realize, it's a pretty collaborative process. One thing that we did was, set up a shared system. So we had a shared spreadsheet we were all working from to kind of house all of these data inputs that we needed, as well as a shared filing system. We use SharePoint, so somewhere to kind of collect all of this documentation that we would need to submit. So that was something that worked well for us. What else I want to touch on? I'll say, this wasn't, a straight process or a straight line from the start to finish. I think, part of that was this was, our first time running through this process as a city. Filing taxes isn't something that municipalities are very versed in doing. So kind of that learning curve, as well as the first time the IRS was going through this process with municipalities and other groups like that. And kind of related to that, I think one challenge that Joyce really elevated was not really knowing the full process or understanding, okay, what does each step look like and what does the end look like when we started at the beginning, back in January. We were kind of building the plan as it flies, right? Another challenge that hopefully we'll get kind of worked through was the IRS forms that we were working with for direct pay weren't actually built for direct pay. They were using forms, that were for other filings. So we'd come across some questions on forms that didn't really match up with what we had or what we knew about. So there was some kind of going back and forth and trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? What do we do in this particular box or this particular entry? Because we didn't want our filing to get, rejected in the end. Okay, what else? So I think the kind of the challenges were the first time going through, and then the physical forms themselves, just having, not lining up completely with what we had. But I will say, in the end, I think we started this process back around January of this year. We were able to submit our filing in May. So within the initial time frame that the IRS was looking for, we filed for just over $193,000. This was for 15 electric vehicles or hybrid electric vehicles, 5 electric vehicle chargers, and 2 solar or PV systems. So that kind of made up what we were filing for. I think Joyce would echo what we're happy to be on the other side of our first time filing. I think Joyce would echo that, and we know a lot more now going into 2024. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I had as far as our summary. I'm happy to go into more detail if folks have questions or hand it over to Jeremiah.
Thank you, Rachel. Let's take questions in the chat. And Jeremiah, go ahead and we'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Please ask lots of questions, because frankly, I think that's what I'm best at, right? Is not necessarily like coming up with the presentation, but like just talking about this stuff with you guys. Good to see everybody. There's a lot of familiar faces on this call, and if I haven't seen you in person lately, I miss you. Hope we get to see each other in Orlando. It's going to be awesome. I already saw the first question, and I'm going to get to that. Because one of the big challenges for us is like once we got through all of this stuff, as Rachel said, tax forms and the various things like filing, we had to send it snail mail, and the reason was there really wasn't any vendor out there that could do the e-filing for us. We reached out. I personally reached out to literally everyone on the list and called every single vendor that the IRS said they had available to e-file, and not a single one of them was able to do it. And so we're still working on that. And I will say the Lighthouse cohort, if those of you are familiar with that group that's trying to help local governments do this, they are specifically working with a vendor they said is hopefully going to be set up this month to be able to do that. But like a lot of things, I will believe that when I see it. So we'll just see how that goes from there. But Buncombe County, I know we're talking about electric vehicles. We did not file for any electric vehicles. We did buy some. A weird thing happened with us in terms of like sometimes you get a car and then like it takes 30 days or so to like get the plates and get the title and all of that stuff. So we actually kind of placed the cars in service in 2023, but we didn't get the title until January of 24. And so they wouldn't let us file because the title was in 24, even though we actually started using the car in 23. So just think about dates sometimes when you're doing this stuff too. But we have filed for thus far over $800,000 in direct pay from solar projects. Because for those of you who have talked to me about this stuff, we've done a ton of solar projects on school districts and community buildings and stuff all over town. So I guess my biggest suggestion in terms of this stuff is streamlining the process, right? That's like the question, like how do you streamline this process? Knowing what to expect, knowing what's needed, well in advance of even starting these projects, right? So for each solar project, as an example, interconnection agreements, permission to operate letters, proof of ownership of the actual site, which I just got from like tax documentation, like just all of those things collected and stored and organized in such a way that it is just drag and drop when it's actually time to start getting in there and pre-registering, leaving yourself lots of time in the pre-registration process. Our pre-registration took like 12 weeks. So from the time I actually submitted the IRS until I actually got the numbers that I was able to put on the tax filing forms was 3 full months. So be very wary of like how long it takes to get that stuff done. So know what the documentation is that you're going to need and give yourself lots of time, right? Obviously, work as a team as best you can. Rachel was very, clear. This is a collaborative process. So, your finance team is going to be critical here. I personally, because I have such a small office, it's just me and one other staff person. Like I did 99% of this stuff myself, but I kept everybody in the loop at all times and made everybody very, very aware of what was happening. So, get your team on board, make sure you're getting all your documentation together. And, we can talk all day about what the documentation is. If you want to ask those questions, that's great. But in the interest of not boring people with tax forms and numbers, just know what you need and have it ready to go. Make sure that you've pinpointed that person in your organization who is going to be that primary contact, right? So the ID.me account that you have to have is one person, and know who that is, get them set up well in advance, again, of registration and all of the things that it's going to take to do this stuff. I've had these types of meetings with, I feel like 20 different local governments. I talked to Boulder, Colorado last week, which they called and asked me questions. I don't know how they got my number, but they called and asked me questions. It's been enlightening because I've heard many people say, well, we've got this consultant that's offered to do this for us for stupid amounts of money. And my suggestion to everybody was don't do that. Like, you can do this in-house. I think once you get your head wrapped around what's needed, it's actually not that hard. And so, I would just love to get more questions from people in terms of, oh, good. Look, I looked at the chat and there's lots more questions. I guess I can start looking at those. Holy crap. You're really throwing them in there.
Wait, Jeremiah, why don't you keep talking? I mean, there's so many questions. We might want to go one by one, but
yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but
I was going to say we can also.
I can do this all.
Sorry to interrupt.
Please.
When we get into the breakout rooms, like that's really like 30 minutes for questions for, you know what I mean? So don't feel like we have to get all this wrapped up in 5 minutes.
Okay. No, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I guess I would say that, I think I've covered most of what I wanted to say just in general. That said, this was a learning process for us. Like, it was, as Rachel said, first time going through anything. It's a little tough. The guidance was issued pretty late in the game. And so, I think it's going to get cleaner as we continue to move forward. And, I'm excited about being able to do this annually and having this sort of locked down going forward. But I don't have much else to say. Get your stuff together. Know what you need. Work with your team. Like, all the stuff. When Stan first called me about this, he said, can you talk to him about your IRA stuff? And I said, I don't know what I'm gonna say to them that they haven't heard in like 36 webinars that we've all had to do over the last year already. But I did think it was a great opportunity to have conversation, right? And so I'm looking forward to that.
Exactly. So that's where we're going with the next step. So thank you, Jeremiah and Rachel, both for sharing your insights. And I wanted to make sure that we are remembering when we are having these conversations, we're going to be capturing all of the notes. We're going to be capturing all of the questions. We're going to be putting it all together in one document, compiling it for you guys, and then sharing it out so that hopefully, you know, we're creating some useful tools for you guys with this conversation. So moving on, there we go. So we're going to go to breakout rooms. We've got 2 breakout rooms. So Michael and Casey are going to be a team, and Stan and I are going to be a team, and then we're just going to break evenly all of the folks on the call so that we can have just question time. So don't feel like you need to speak up don't be stressed out about going into a breakout room. Nobody's going to be put on the spot. Nobody knows all of the answers. So just know that we're going to be, like I said, compiling all of the questions and trying to work on unanswered questions for you guys. So before we go into the breakout rooms, we do want to put a poll up just to kind of see where everybody's at in the process. So Chris, if you could put that poll up right now, if you guys should be able to just click on it and answer the question. But we've been having, there we go. Okay, it did work. Yay, technology. So if you guys wouldn't mind answering just kind of where you are, if you're just now thinking about it, really haven't started, if you are talking with leadership and having internal discussions, or if you have your projects ready and applying and moving forward. So go ahead and answer that question and then hit submit and give you guys a minute to do that. And then we will go ahead and just divide you guys into the breakout room. So you shouldn't have to do anything. You should be able to just be dropped into the room. So Chris is going to handle that end of it. All right. Looks like we are all back together again. So thank you guys for participating. I know that our breakout room had a super robust conversation about what you guys are already working on or how to get started, and just really great ideas that were shared. So Cassie and Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you guys for a little bit to kind of debrief and share some of the high level pieces that were discussed in your breakout room. But again, everybody, we're going to compile all this and put it into a document. I know that there were resources that were shared verbally and are going to be shared via email. So go ahead, take it away.
Well, I'll pick a few, Michael, and then you jump in with a few. I think we had some excellent questions, and I will say the one question that we had of how do we get started is really about fear. It's always all of us as sustainability resilience officers, we're like, let's do it. And our finance department says, eek, it's scary. We've never done that before. We're not supposed to. And I think what Jeremiah did a phenomenal job of really sharing that it's not hard. We have guidance for all the forums and all the things, and he's ready to share all of that stuff. You look at a 10-page form, but all you really need to do is fill out 3 different items. So there's a lot of super simplicity in it. I think one of the other daunting things that we did come to realize is that it might take you an hour to fill out some of these documents, to get 15 minutes to get an ID.me set up, 15 minutes to get you registered as a clean energy community. But the hardship is that once you get everything documented and done, the length of time is waiting for the IRS to say you are officially registered. So that's some of the timing. It's not a ton of work on your side, other than making sure you collect the information properly, get it right. So doing it is not the deal. There were a whole slew of other questions because the majority of the teammates with us are in the process somewhere. At least that's the way they presented. So we had a lot of great questions for folks. And what we also know we have is an incredible resource and Jeremiah and Buncombe County. So Rachel as well, I'm assuming, but being able to make sure that we're getting good, that we can help each other do this and get this done correctly. A few questions, and then Michael, if you'll jump in with anything I miss, but a whole lot of, easy questions, or not, good questions about the ease of setting up an ID.me account. That is different from Pages. It's different from anything you might have done, but you can only have one per municipality. So the hardship there is making sure that no one else has already set it up in your city. It could be done through your finance department. It could have been done because of a grant. It could have been done because of an emergency declaration. So just make sure you're checking with the right people to get that done. I would say, there are a lot of forms. There's some very simple information that you need to collect to have in advance and have ready for you. Michael, you want to pick up and talk about some of the timing on some other pieces?
Absolutely. One of the key things, and again, great thanks to Jeremiah for showing that while it might be imposing, it also didn't take that much time once he was able to refer to annotated documents and examples. But one of the key things in terms of the time frame that he mentioned is that the filing is due by November 15th. That being said, as Casey, you mentioned, IRS might take a little while. So it's best to do this very shortly in the next week or two. If you can, try to do everything you can to pre-register at that time frame, recognizing that it might take a month or two for IRS or Treasury to get back to you. That being said, even if they don't get it in time, there's the potential for highlighting options there because they recognize they are overwhelmed at the moment. They don't want to disenfranchise anyone who submitted in time. So that's one of the things in terms of the time frame. I'll just say the other thing that he mentioned, really important, is that there will require a little bit of communication between accounting and your different project officers to keep track of the relevant documentation that you might not be required to submit necessarily to IRS, but it's still important to have for auditing purposes. So just try to make sure you collect purchase orders, invoices, dates, place in service, titles, that sort of supplemental information, just so you have it for coverage.
All right. Thank you, Michael and Casey. Anything else that you want to share?
I wanted to add one other thing. Somebody had, I think it was Kimberly White, somebody offered to do it for them for a fee and for a percentage. And in our discussions, that's lovely, but I think the reason people are offering it is because it seems so hard, but really what needs to be done to make this happen is not that hard. If you've got, gobs of cash sitting around, that's maybe you want to do that, but it really, what everybody really felt was that that's not necessary. This is a doable thing once you get past the fear factor within your communities.
Excellent advice. Okay, so in our breakout room, we talked quite a bit about the IDB process. So don't want to beleaguer that point, but it was mentioned that there is a co-option. So someone from the finance department and then someone from sustainability as a co-author on the IRS form. And then we also talked about, and this is a great idea, in Clearwater, they hired an intern that they had, and they hired the intern specifically with the intent of being able to manage all of this process. So they created a spreadsheet, and they were responsible for compiling all of the documents and making sure that everything was in order. They also, which I thought was interesting, is talked about having to get buy-in from the departments, splitting the money that comes from the tax credits 50-50 with them to get some internal buy-in from the departments to help along with that. And then also there was we talked about ways to manage all of the documents. So Rachel offered to share a spreadsheet that she created to help manage all of the different components and make sure that the departments understand all of the information that they need to be collecting. And then Heather at Charlotte was talking about training staff to make sure that they feel comfortable doing this going forward, so that it's not just on one person, but that the work is divided amongst many. They do still have questions about the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, so that's something that we may want to dive deeper into on another topic, but that Lawyers for Good Governance did help with some contract language around that she was willing to share. Stan, is there something that I've left off that you thought was worth mentioning here?
No, I think you did a great job summarizing, Dory.
Oh, there was one other topic that I thought was really clever that that Cassie from Clearwater mentioned, that they had invested about $200,000 for Solar Ready project. And by adding solar to the project, about $100,000 worth of solar, they were able to capture the tax credit for all of that. And so it's basically getting the solar panels for free. So wanted to mention that. And I noticed that was in the chat too, is that like asking if she could write that up and share a little bit more about that. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end this part, but like I said, we'll be capturing all this, putting it together. So Stan, I'm going to hand it over to you for a little conversation about utility.
I had a question, if I could, before we move on.
Sure.
And this is a very basic question. I was actually just tuning in to try to learn more, and I've been passing along information to other departments that are buying vehicles and equipment. But it occurs to me that there may be equipment and purchases that qualify that I'm not aware of. And so in the past year, there are purchases of hybrid vehicles and HVAC equipment. Can you speak to whether those would qualify for elective pay or directed pay?
So if they're plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, then they would, yes. And I don't have expertise on the HVAC question. So I think we will get back to you on that, Kent.
I don't think HVAC would qualify unless it's geothermal.
Yeah, I think it's the same as LED, like upgrading is different from replacing in the direct carbon emission. So HVAC typically hasn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ken. And we can follow up with you know, more links to what is eligible. I know SSDN has been doing a lot of work to compile that. Michael, you good for me to roll, or did you have something that you wanted to add?
Actually, just real quickly, I'm going to put in the chat momentarily a link to SSDN's survey of local government and elective pay. This is really intended to provide support for local governments in understanding how to pursue elective pay. This was actually asked by a member to collect this information, and I'll be sharing it out hopefully by the end of the week, but would really like to get strong participation on the survey.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So yeah, if everyone would look in the chat at the link to that survey, your participation will be really helpful, as it always is. And on that note, we wanted to just spend a moment talking a little bit about engaging with utilities around the electrification of transportation. So again, we're sort of, you know, thinking ahead about our in-person meeting in February in Orlando and wanting to make sure that we're kind of planning for those discussions to be real value add. And one thing that we recognize is that, you know, when local governments are engaging with their electric utilities, particularly investor-owned utilities, there are a host of challenges that local governments face in that engagement. And so I'm not asking this question to open up the utility engagement challenge can of worms, but rather to speak very specifically about some of the challenges that folks are having in around the electrification of your fleets or the deployment of charging infrastructure, but really particularly around electrification of your fleets. And so what I'd like to invite us to do is sort of a lightning round where if you're experiencing challenges around engagement with your utilities, it could be on timeline, it can be on cost, it can be on initial engagement, whatever it may be. If we could just go ahead and kind of have a lightning round and name some of those challenges, we're going to go ahead and capture that, and then we're going to use that to kind of build sort of a discussion around those challenges. So if everybody is game for a little lightning round, I would like to open that up. And I cannot see everybody with the PowerPoint screen on to know whose hands might be raised. So just invite folks to come off mute and go ahead and give any challenges that you're having. Again, we don't need a long description of the challenges. It's like lightning round concept here. Just kind of name the challenge, and then we'll be capturing that. So has anybody had any challenges with their utilities around transportation electrification? Yeah.
Hey, Stan, I'll start. I don't know if it's a challenge, but obviously I think we're all dealing with the same issue is getting transformer upgrades, new service, or downsizing some of the transformers. So we took more of a proactive, holistic approach. So with our EV implementation strategy rollout, we shared that with Duke Energy in advance to share with them all of the multiple sites that we plan on building, so that we're a little ahead of the game. So when we do need transformers, new services, they're aware of what we're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, if you get too far behind the 8 ball and they're not aware, then you're put behind the list, and you may not see new service transformers for maybe 18 months, maybe 24 months, and that could very well stale your process. So just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Absolutely. Good one. So we got transformer issues for sure. I see in the chat, Robin Richardson put in that they've been having challenges connecting the EV charging stations once they get them installed. It's an interconnection issue and the long time that it takes for that final sort of process on projects. So that's great. Rachel, did you have a challenge you wanted to name?
Yeah, I think we haven't quite seen it, at least in mass scale yet, but something that we're gonna see in the future is like the demand management, time of use.
Yes.
With when we're charging our vehicles.
Yeah, and are you having, is part of that challenge that you just aren't sure what those demand charges are going to be, and it's difficult to plan appropriately?
Yeah, I think we've just wrapped our heads around them now. But we've got like just under 70 vehicles right now, and we hope to have north of 200 in 6 years. So just that sort of scaling level of how that's going to impact us. And some of the vehicles are just going to need to charge when they need to charge, so they're ready, and yeah, how that all kind of plays out.
Great. Excellent. Any other challenges that folks are facing engaging utilities? John King, I see you came off mute. What you got?
Yeah, I just want to follow up with what Rachel just indicated. We started out with 5 heavy-duty electric vehicles, and we projected from our electric utility, they were able to tell us basically what the on-peak charges per kilowatt hour would be, as well as off-peak. But what we did not know was demand charges. So as we added more vehicles on, now that demand charge is substantial. So that's something that is a challenge that needs to be calculated when projecting how many vehicles to place in the fleet and what the cost will be.
Great.
I wanted to add, even though Georgia Power Make Ready has been an awesome program, we're using it right now for 20 additional chargers at City Hall. We were awarded the CFI grant that's focusing on DC fast chargers, and we were just with Georgia Power yesterday, and there's a lot of demand for transformers, and it takes to help meet that capacity. And they're saying it's going to take about 6 to 12 months to be able to, get those transformers delivered, much less the work that actually goes into getting the infrastructure set up. So, yeah, even if there's dollars that are the utility is providing, especially if you're doing a lot of chargers at one location or any DC fast chargers, that's something to be aware of and to talk with your utility early and often.
That's great, John. Yeah, it would be great to know kind of if utilities would be able to communicate what that kind of what that lag time is on transformers in real time, so we could have visibility there. What else? What about, like, I'm curious also in terms of the, you know, John, to your point, kind of, are folks having conversations with utilities about, you know, kind of both depot and route charging needs for kind of fleet electrification? And are you seeing any, you know, unique challenges on the depot side that are kind of different than conversations you might be having about charging stations, you know, kind of more out in the public space that you're looking to use for fleet?
Okay, I'm sorry, that question is directed toward me.
Oh, no, I'm just saying in general, but if you've got
Yeah,
something, John, go for it.
oh, no, so in general, we're not having really the issue on the public side, because on the public side, it is metered and the public is paying for it, and it's time of use. So most of those chargers are going to be charged at a rate that's on peak during the demand time period or schedule. So that's not an issue, but the issue is on the fleet side, where we're charging public utility vehicles. We have sanitation trucks, for example, and other municipal style trucks, and that we need to project for example, during a budget year, how much cost of fuel or energy is going to take to power equipment. So that's difficult to do without knowing those other additional charges.
Great, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I'm curious if anyone's sort of with kind of your fleet ambitions, or folks are working with you know, either your transit agencies or folks on the electric school bus side where school buses are being deployed, or are you starting to look at vehicle to grid integration? And if so, are you having conversations with utilities, and what challenges might you see coming in that space beyond just kind of the technology maturing? Rick, did you have something on that?
No, I was going to actually speak. We're not yet at vehicle to grid or
Okay,
vehicle.
go for it. Yeah, what were you going to say?
But I did want to point out to John's point, I think it was regarding ALM, is if you know, as we start to expand the EV infrastructure, we're fortunate because we're replacing our fuel management system. So we're transitioning to a new fuel EV software application. I think it's critical that if we're not already ahead of the game, is looking at software to manage load shedding, load demand. As you start to get into the hundreds of vehicles, if you don't have software that can properly control it, you're going to start getting into peak hours, and you're going to start getting into really high demand charges. So I would encourage everybody on this call that it's more than just vehicles, charging infrastructure. Software is going to be a real essential element to this. And if you're not looking at it, ALM or some type of management software control, it's really going to put a burden to your financial electrical loads. So.
That's great, Rick. Thanks for that. Well, anybody else got anything? Trey, I see you just came off. We got time for maybe one or two more. Go for it.
Yes, Dan, I was just going to talk to your point about V2G for the school bus side of things. We're technically outside of the ETS service area in Virginia here, but our utility Dominion has a program for any CSB recipients that they will go ahead and provide the charging infrastructure if you buy a V2G compliant school bus. The snag that we've hit recently is that the batteries had been manufactured by Proterra, and they offered an extended warranty on them up to 15 years, sort of the typical service life of a school bus. And now I think they've been bought up by Volvo Heavy Trucks. So it's now down to an 8-year warranty. So there's just some concern around whether using this V2G program, which does underwrite the cost of all the utility side upgrades, as well as the charging infrastructure. So it's a good deal for the school district, but you know, are we compromising the longevity of these buses, the service time that we can keep them operating for the school district? Yeah, that's a tough question to noodle on for sure. Thanks for highlighting that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here, and Dory, I'll kind of turn it back over to you to wrap things up for the webinar. But thank you all very much for your thoughts, and we'll capture those and kind of circle back around as we get closer to the in-person convening.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Stan. And thank you, Reed and Chris, our colleagues at SACE who have been helping run the back end today. Really appreciate you guys very much. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys all saved the date. Our next virtual meeting is going to be November 21st. That's a Thursday. And we're going to do it earlier in the day from 9 to 10:30. So we will be working on getting a registration link for that and getting it out to you, but go ahead and mark your calendars for that. And then the reminder about the upcoming, event in person in February. So go ahead and mark your calendars for February 6th and 7th for Orlando. We also will be putting out a very basic kind of agenda for that, so that, because we know that some of you have to be able to show an agenda for an event to your decision makers to let you guys go to events. So be on the lookout for both of those coming to you. And Casey and I will work on compiling all of the notes that we took today and putting that together for you guys and sending that out as well. So give us a little bit more time on compiling those notes, but promise we'll get them to you. Really thank you all for being really active participants and sharing your knowledge with one another. I think that's what makes the collaborative so special, is that you guys are really helping each other out and learning from each other. So thanks to everyone, and we will see you November 21st. Be well.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.